Well, I had a 5 a.m. start to my day to get in the truck and get down here to the dyno at R&R Performance in Spring Lake Park, Minnesota. That's Max, the owner of the shop, working on the engine, getting it up off the cart, and then get it onto the dyno cart. He was actually one of my students when I taught substitute teaching in the machinist program out in Bemidji when that was still a thing. For a month and a half or 2 months I was out there. So this is just a little bit of the process of getting an engine on the dyno and bolting it up there. We had to put a flywheel on and then the adapter plate and then the bell housing. Now the engine can get over and actually get hooked up to the dyno and then figure out the motor mounts for getting it stable on the cart. Meanwhile, I'm busy trying to get as much stuff hooked up and ready to go as I can. I was sorting out the fuel injection stuff, and here I'm getting the header gaskets and putting the header on. Had to fill it up with oil and get the dry sump primed up there. I ended up using just a drill on the belt to get it to prime. It wasn't the best solution. I've since made a tool for doing that.
I just had a panic attack about whether the oil pressure fitting was plugged. It
is. You gotta get the fuel injection put on. If you're just joining this, it's a Terminator X system from Holley. I'm just running it with a Sniper distributor. They're in the Hyperspark system. So had to pull all that off the car so that we could get it set up on the dyno and all the boxes mounted and then the wiring plugged in. And here we're shifting the cart around so that we can get the exhaust hooked up. Yeah, we're going for our first startup. Out checking heat on the header tubes, make sure we're running on all 8 cylinders is what Max is doing. We had one that ended up being a little cold, but by the time we got out there to check it and pull the spark plugs and stuff, it had started running on that cylinder. I think maybe it was just the last setting was a little tight and it was leaking past one of the valves there for the first couple seconds. They were verifying timing, make sure that everything's matching up software to the EFI to what the engine's actually seeing. And we just gotta have it running, get some load on it so we can work it through, get the rings seated a little bit. Verify that everything's good, like oil pressure, air fuel ratios, and all that.
That was good, right? 13s. So I do like a 5500 rip just to make sure we don't get any crazy spokes on the AFRs.
Max is getting the air hat hooked up so that we can get fresh air from outside pulling in, and then there's also a little meter in that assembly too to measure the air consumption of the engine and make some other calculations and stuff that the dyno takes. Getting the fresh airflow hat set up. We'll put a riff on it here in a minute. Now we're getting ready, doing our first pull on it. We're keeping it a little soft. We're only going to 5500 just to really check things over. Again, verify that at wide open throttle the fuel ratio looks good. Had a bunch of oil squirt out of the breather when we came off throttle there. Guess I'd overfilled it before when I'd run the system there. It took 12 quarts there and it only wanted 10 in it for this engine. So, and that might have been because of the extra valley suction pickup I had put in there, so it wasn't keeping a little bit of oil up there instead of having it all return from the pan.
That's not spinning, remember? No, but it drips on it, right?
Too much oil. Kept up with the RPM and then started doing longer and longer pulls. I was rock solid at 12.6 the whole way on my gauge.
Alright. See what RPM is on that?
Right at the start, pretty good.
Dave even showed up to kind of just come hang out, see what we were doing. This is what a dyno day should be, just hanging out with some of your buddies and making some horsepower. What did we get right at the end?
Do you have a rev limiter?
Dude! Like, what the fuck was that?
That's what that was.
Alright. Like, fuck it, look, your fuel was good on my end the whole way.
Yeah.
Well,
so
at least now I know the regulator works. Oh, it took it up top more.
you definitely liked it up there.
Yeah.
You could almost hear it when it came into it too.
Yeah, well, maybe you can pull that down just a little bit. Or maybe we can kind of look at, if we can overlap the curves, maybe it'll kind of give us an idea where RPM it wants it at. Okay, I put it back down to 30, from 55 up to 57.50. And then I left 32 at 6, and then above 6 I went to 33. We'll see if it changes that curve up there at all.
The whole day wasn't without issues though. We ended up having to chase a few tuning things that were being weird and jumping around, where when the dyno was transitioning into load to be able to start the pull, the EFI system was just trying to add a ton of fuel, and we really struggled trying to figure out what the heck was going on there. Because it'd be good the one run, and then you go to do a repeat run, and then all of a sudden it's just dumping fuel, dumping fuel, dumping fuel in. So we ended up going through, checking spark plugs, and just trying to make sure that we didn't have anything more major going on. We never did really figure out what exactly was causing it, so we ended up having to turn off learn and closed loop comp values, or at least turn them down so that it wouldn't be trying to dump all that fuel in. Because it seemed every time we had an issue, it was interrupting the entire pull, where it'd load up and then we'd be cut down on power through the entire pull. So we had to try to make sure we had a clean transition. Switching to E85 now. But it's winter time, so like E50.